I never thought I'd spend my final moments cursing a malfunctioning fuel stabilizer while plummeting toward the swampy surface of an uncharted moon. The escape pod shuddered violently as atmospheric entry turned its exterior white-hot. All those years of training at the academy, and they never quite prepare you for the sensation of your organs trying to rearrange themselves during an emergency landing. Ethan Cole to Artemis Base, I shouted into the comms unit, fighting to keep my voice steady. Mayday, mayday. Escape pod systems failing. Coordinates unknown. Please respond. Static. Just more static. My mothership, the USV Explorer, had encountered some kind of electromagnetic anomaly several hours ago. Systems started failing in cascading sequence. Life support, navigation, propulsion. Captain Rivera ordered evacuation, and the last thing I saw before my pod ejected was the Explorer's hull breaching in multiple sections. Now I was hurtling toward a moon that shouldn't even exist according to our star charts. The pod's retro thrusters sputtered, cutting in just enough to slow my descent from certainly fatal to probably survivable. Treetops rushed up to meet me, except they weren't trees, not exactly. They looked like massive ferns with phosphorescent blue veins running through their leaves. Impact. Darkness. I awoke to the sound of dripping water and a throbbing pain in my temple. The pod had lodged itself at an awkward angle, half buried in the spongy ground. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow across the cramped interior. I ran a quick systems check. Environmental controls barely functioning, communications dead, navigation offline. The pod's small viewport revealed a purplish twilight sky, filtering through a canopy of luminescent vegetation. Cole's first law of space exploration, I muttered to myself as I gathered emergency supplies. If anything can go wrong, it will, and the most inconvenient location possible. The air outside was surprisingly breathable, if humid enough to make my uniform stick to my skin within minutes. My handheld analyzer showed oxygen levels similar to Earth, though with higher concentrations of noble gases. Nothing immediately toxic, at least. Small mercies. I established a perimeter around the pod, setting up emergency beacons that would hopefully boost my distress signal. The landscape was bizarre, half swamp, half jungle, with plants that seemed to pulse with bioluminescence as darkness fell. Strange chirping sounds echoed from the undergrowth, interspersed with splashes from unseen creatures in the nearby pools. My combat training kicked in as I cataloged potential threats, unknown fauna, possible toxins, the risk of infection from alien microbes, and the ever-present danger of my limited supplies running out before rescue arrived. First order of business: water, food, shelter, communication, I reminded myself. Stick to protocol. I was collecting samples of what appeared to be drinkable water from a clear stream when I felt it, a prickling sensation at the back of my neck, the distinct feeling of being watched. Instinctively, I reached for my pulse pistol, scanning the treeline for movement. Nothing, just the eerie glow of plant life and the persistent twilight that seemed to hang over this strange world. "Hello," I called out, immediately regretting breaking silence. "Is someone there?" A rustling sound came from behind a luminous, fern-like plant. I trained my pistol on the spot, finger hovering near the trigger. "I mean no harm," I continued, trying to sound confident despite my racing heart. "I'm Lieutenant Ethan Cole of the United Earth Space Force. My ship crashed and—" I never finished that sentence. Something shot from the underbrush, a glowing, web-like mesh that expanded in mid-air and enveloped me before I could react. It pulsed with a strange energy that made my muscles seize up. I collapsed, struggling against the sticky, luminescent threads. "Got you," came a triumphant, high-pitched voice. From behind the fern emerged a figure so unexpected that for a moment I thought the crash had given me a concussion. She was humanoid but stood barely 3 feet tall, with iridescent blue-green skin that seemed to shimmer in the bioluminescent light. Her features were delicate but alien, large, pupil-less eyes that glowed amber, a small nose with vertical slits for nostrils, and a mouth that curved into what appeared to be a smile, revealing teeth as white as polished pearls. Her clothing seemed to be made from woven plant fibers dyed in vibrant colors, and adorning her neck and wrists were ornaments crafted for what looked like polished stones and tiny glowing organisms. "What a strange creature you are!" she exclaimed, approaching me without any apparent fear. Her voice had an odd musical quality, the words somehow translated, or perhaps she was speaking English. I couldn't tell. "So tall and clumsy, but perfect." "What? Who are you?" I managed still, struggling against the web. "What is this thing?" "I'm Zur," she replied, circling me with evident curiosity and pride. "And you're my pet now. I caught you all by myself. The others didn't believe I could, but I did." She puffed out her chest, clearly pleased with herself. "Pet," I sputtered. "I'm not a pet. I'm a human being, Lieutenant Ethan Cole of the United Earth Space Force. I crash-landed here and need assistance." Zur tilted her head, examining me like one might look at an interesting insect. "You make funny sounds. I like them." She reached out and poked my shoulder with a small finger. "You're mine now. I'll feed you and take care of you and show you to everyone in the village." "No, you don't understand," I protested, trying to sound authoritative despite my undignified position. "I need to repair my communication to Ray. There are others like me who will be looking for me. I can't be your pet." All creatures say no at first. Zur dismissed my objection with a wave of her hand. "But you'll see, I'm very good with pets. Much better than Lynn, who let her spine-tail lizard escape 3 times. You like living with me." Before I could argue further, she pulled out a small wooden device from a pouch at her waist. She blew into it, producing a series of melodic notes that echoed through the forest. Within minutes, more of her kind emerged from the vegetation, all similar in height and appearance, though with variations in skin tone and clothing. They gathered around me, exclaiming in their musical language, occasionally breaking into what I recognized as heavily accented English. "Big one. Strange coloring. Is it dangerous, Zur?" "Where did you find it?" "In the clearing by the fallen starlight," Zur announced proudly, "right where the sky cracked open. I told you strange creatures would come, and now it's mine." One of the newcomers, slightly taller than the rest and adorned with more elaborate ornaments, approached carefully. "The elders will want to see this creature." "But it's mine, Taz," Zur insisted, stepping between me and the other alien. "I caught it." Yes, the one called Taz agreed, "but all new things must be shown to the elders." "Rules, Zur. You know this." Zur's expression fell momentarily before she brightened again. "Fine, but I still get to keep it after they see it." "If the elders permit," Taz replied cryptically, and so began my indignity. Unable to break free from the strangely powerful web, I was hoisted onto a floating platform made from what appeared to be giant leaves reinforced with some kind of resin. As they carried me deeper into the jungle, away from my crash site and any hope of rescue, I alternated between protesting my capture and trying to reason with these beings. "Listen, I'm not a pet. I'm an explorer. A scientist. I come from a planet called Earth." I tried explaining. "I need to return to my pod and send a distress signal." Zur, who walked alongside the platform, reached up to pat my hand patronizingly. "You make such interesting noises. I'll teach you proper words soon. All my pets learn quickly." "I already know words," I grumbled. "I'm speaking them right now." "See?" Zur looked triumphantly at her companions. "It's already trying to communicate. I told you I have a gift with creatures." As we traveled deeper into the forest, the bioluminescent vegetation grew more intense, casting a dreamlike blue-green glow over everything. The terrain changed, becoming less swampy and more like solid ground, covered in a carpet of moss that seemed to pulse with light where we stepped. Eventually, the forest opened up into a massive clearing, and I gasped despite myself. Before us spread a village unlike anything I'd ever seen. Dwellings built on enormous floating lily pad-like platforms, connected by swinging bridges made of woven vines. The entire settlement hovered over what appeared to be a vast, shallow lake that glowed with the same bioluminescence as the surrounding forest. "Welcome to Luminera," Zur announced proudly, misinterpreting my awe. "Best village on all of Alera. You'll live here now." "Look, Zur," I tried again, my voice softening with a new approach. I appreciate the hospitality, but I really need to get back to my ship, my traveling home. Others like me will be worried. For a moment, something like understanding flickered across Zer's features. You have a tribe? A family? Yes, I said eagerly. A crew. They'll be looking for me. Zer seemed to consider this, but then shook her head decisively. If they come, they can visit you here. But you stay with me now. We were led across one of the swinging bridges, which undulated alarmingly beneath the weight of the platform carrying me. The village's inhabitants emerged from their dome-shaped dwellings to stare and point. Children, at least I assumed they were children, being even smaller than the adults, ran alongside us, giggling and reaching up to touch my uniform with curious fingers. Finally, we reached a larger structure at the center of the village. The web that bound me was loosened enough to let me sit up, though not enough to escape. I found myself in what appeared to be a communal meeting place, with a circle of older-looking aliens regarding me with expressions ranging from curiosity to evident suspicion. Elders of Luminera, Taz announced formally. Zer has captured a strange creature from the fallen starlight. She claims it as her pet, but brings it before you as custom demands. The eldest among them, a female with pale, almost white skin with a tinge of blue and intricate markings across her face, approached me slowly. She carried a staff adorned with crystals that emitted a soft light. I am Elder Myra. She introduced herself in perfect, unaccented English that surprised me. And you're not a pet, are you, Star Traveler? Relief washed over me. No, I'm not. My name is Lieutenant Ethan Cole of the United Earth Space Force. My ship malfunctioned, and I crash-landed on your moon in an escape pod. I need to repair my communications equipment to signal for rescue. Murmurs rippled through the assembled crowd. Elder Myra raised a hand for silence. It has been many cycles since the Tall Ones visited Alara, she said thoughtfully. There's stories, old stories of your kind. You've met humans before? I asked, hope rising. Not I, Myra clarified. But our ancestors speak of tall beings who came from beyond the stars. Some stories speak of friendship. Others, she trailed off ominously. I assure you, I mean no harm, I said quickly. I'm a scientist, an explorer. We seek knowledge, not conquest. Zer, who had been watching this exchange with growing confusion, stepped forward. But I caught it fair. By the old rules, it's mine to keep. Elder Myra turned to her with a gentle expression. Zer, child of quick hands and quicker thoughts. This is not a forest creature to be tamed. This is a visitor from beyond our world. But Zer began to protest. The council will discuss this matter. Another elder cut in. Until then, the creature will remain in containment. And so I found myself in what amounted to a cage, albeit a surprisingly comfortable one. It was a small dwelling near Zer's family home, constructed from woven plant fibers and suspended slightly above the ground. The bars were actually flexible vines growing in a lattice pattern, emanating a soft glow that I suspected might have some kind of sedative or restraining effect. Zer had been appointed my keeper, while the council deliberated, a concession that somewhat appeased her disappointment at having her pet status questioned. She took the role seriously, bringing me food, strange but not unpleasant fruits, and what appeared to be a soup made from luminescent fungi, and watching with fascination as I ate. Why are you so big? She asked, sitting cross-legged on the floor outside my cage. It must be difficult to hide from predators. We don't have many predators where I come from, I explained, deciding to engage with her curiosity. And we build structures to protect ourselves. Like your falling star house. My escape pod, yes. Speaking of which, I really need to get back there. My people will be looking for its signal. Zer frowned. The elders say we must wait. They're afraid. Afraid of what? She leaned closer, lowering her voice. The river people. They watched your star fall too. They may come looking. River people? They live downstream, in the deep waters. They wear bone masks and use strange magic. They don't like outsiders. She shuddered slightly. They especially don't like us. I filed this information away. Potential local conflict could complicate my situation further. Zer, Why did you want a pet so badly that you'd catch the first strange creature you saw fall from the sky? The question seemed to catch her off guard. She fidgeted with one of her wrist ornaments before answering. Everyone has a role here. Taz is a bridge builder. Lynn tends the floating gardens. My mother is a healer. She hesitated. I haven't found my gift yet, but I'm good with creatures. If I brought home a special pet, everyone would see I have value too. The vulnerability in her voice struck me. Despite our differences in my predicament, I felt a sudden empathy for her. I understand wanting to prove yourself, I said softly. Where I come from, I was always trying to show I deserve my place too. She looked up, surprised. Really? But you're so tall and strange. Surely everyone noticed you. I laughed despite myself. Being noticed isn't the same as being valued. For a moment, we shared a connection that transcended our bizarre circumstances. Then she stood abruptly. I must go. The night gathering will begin soon. Wait, I called as she turned to leave. Sir, if you help me get back to my pod, I could show you technology from my world. Things that would truly impress your people. She paused, clearly tempted. I'll think about it, she said finally, before disappearing into the growing darkness. Left alone, I examined my cage more carefully. The vine-like bars were firmly rooted, but I noticed they weren't actually locked together at certain junctions. With some effort, I might be able to create an opening. But where would I go? I had no idea where my pod was in relation to this floating village, and blundering through an alien forest at night seemed like a fast way to end up as something's dinner. Better to wait, build trust, gather information. First rule of survival in unknown territory: don't make rash decisions. As night fully descended, the village transformed. The bioluminescence intensified, bathing everything in ethereal blue-green light. Music drifted across the water. Complex, haunting melodies played on instruments I couldn't identify. From my suspended cage, I could see villagers gathering in the central meeting place, forming circles as they engaged in what appeared to be ceremonial dances. The beauty of it was undeniable, and for a moment, I allowed myself to appreciate the extraordinary circumstance of being perhaps the first human to witness this alien culture. The celebration continued late into the night. Eventually, the music faded, and the villagers returned to their dwellings. The forest around us never truly went dark. The bioluminescent plants ensured a perpetual twilight, but a different rhythm took over, with new sounds emerging from the wilderness beyond the village perimeter. I must have dozed off despite my predicament, because I was startled awake by a light touch on my shoulder. Zur was inside my cage, a finger pressed to her lips in the universal signal for silence. How did you get in here? I whispered, noticing that a section of the vine bars had been loosened. I made this cage, she whispered back. I know its secrets. You're letting me go? Hope surged within me. No, she replied simply. I'm taking you somewhere. Follow quietly. Against my better judgment, I followed her out of the cage and through the sleeping village. We crossed a smaller bridge than the one we'd arrived on. This one barely more than a rope with occasional platforms for footholds. Zur moved with practiced ease, while I clung desperately to the guide ropes, trying not to look down at the glowing water below. We reached the shore and continued into the forest, Zur leading with confidence through the maze of luminous vegetation. After nearly an hour of walking, we emerged into a small clearing where a familiar sight made my heart leap. My escape pod, its hull gleaming dully in the bioluminescent light. "Emigrek pot," I exclaimed, moving toward it eagerly. "How did you find it again?" "I marked the path when they carried you away," Zur explained. "I wanted to see your star house again." "Thank you," I said sincerely. "This might help me contact my people." She watched curiously as I climbed inside and tried to activate the communications array. As I feared, the impact had damaged it beyond my ability to repair with available tools. "No luck?" Zur asked, peering inside. "The transmitter's damaged," I explained, frustration evident in my voice. "I need parts one don't have." Zur was quiet for a moment, then said, "There are old metal places in the deep forest. From before. Maybe they have parts." "Old metal places? What do you mean?" "The ancestors speak of them. Places where the tall ones lived long ago. We don't go there. They say the walls remember. An archaeological site? Or perhaps ruins of a previous human expedition. Either way, it might contain technology one could salvage. Can you show me these places? I asked. Zer hesitated. It's forbidden. The elders say the old places are dangerous. More dangerous than me being stranded here forever. I countered. She seemed to wrestle with this, then reached a decision. We'll go tomorrow night, after the work gathering. The elders will be in long council. Why are you helping me? I asked. I thought you wanted me as your pet. Zer gave me what I was beginning to recognize as her equivalent of a smile. Maybe I just want to see what you'll do. Besides, a good pet keeper knows when their creature needs to explore. We returned to the village before dawn, Zer skillfully sneaking me back into my cage and rearranging the vines so no one would notice they'd been disturbed. As she prepared to leave, I called softly after her. Zer, thank you. She paused, looking back with those strange amber eyes. Sleep now, tall one. Tomorrow we hunt for your talking metal. As she vanished into the pre-dawn light, I realized with some surprise that I was starting to like this small, brave alien who had captured me, and who might now be my best hope for escape. The next day passed with excruciating slowness. Various villagers came to observe me, some bringing food or small offerings of what I assumed were comfort. Items, soft moss bedding, a woven blanket, a container of sweet-smelling liquid that turned out to be a pleasant, if slightly intoxicating, beverage. Elder Myra returned in the afternoon, dismissing the curious onlookers with a wave of her hand. We spoke at length about our respective worlds. I learned that the Ellerans, as they called themselves, had existed on this moon for as long as their recorded history, though their myth spoke of having been sung into being by the stars long ago. Your people, she said thoughtfully, there's stories of them coming before, not in falling stars like yours, but in great vessels that floated above the treetops. When was this? I asked, trying to figure out if she was describing a legitimate previous contact or just local legend. Many generations passed. Before my grandmother's grandmother was born, Myra replied. They came, they studied, they left. Some say they gave gifts. Others say they took more than they gave. I assure you, modern protocol strictly prohibits interference with developing cultures, I said, falling back on my diplomatic training. Myra made a sound that might have been laughter. Are we developing to you, Star Traveler? Perhaps we are exactly as we wish to be. The comment struck me, challenging assumptions I hadn't even realized I was making. Before I could respond, commotion erupted from the village perimeter. Shouts and alarm calls echoed across the water. Myra rose swiftly. Stay here, she commanded, no longer the philosophical elder, but a leader responding to threat. Through the lattice of my cage, I could see villagers rushing to defensive positions along the platforms. Children were being hurried into the central structures. Warriors, a term I wouldn't have applied to the peaceful-seeming Ellerans until that moment, appeared with spears tipped with crystalline points that glowed with inner light. And then I saw them, emerging from the water at the village's edge. Humanoid like the Ellerans, but larger, perhaps 4 feet tall, with mottled gray-green skin. Most disturbing were the masks they wore, crafted from what looked like polished bone, covering the upper portions of their faces, with dark eye holes that revealed nothing of what lay behind them. River people, I whispered, remembering Zer's warning. They moved with an unsettling fluidity, climbing onto the platforms despite the Ellerans' attempts to repel them. Though outnumbered, they seemed undeterred, advancing with purpose rather than aggression. One figure stood out, taller than the rest, wearing an elaborate headdress of bones and glowing crystals. This leader raised a hand, and the advance halted. In the sudden stillness, the leader's voice carried across the water, speaking in a language similar to the Ellerans, but harsher, more guttural. I couldn't understand the words, but the reaction among the villagers made the message clear. Faces turned toward my cage. Elder Myra stepped forward, responding in the same language, but with evident refusal in her tone. The river people's leader pointed directly at me, voice rising. Whatever demand was being made, I was clearly its subject. As tensions escalated, A small figure darted through the crowd toward my cage. Zur, her face tight with worry. They know you're here, she whispered urgently, working at the vines of my cage. They want to take you. What? I asked, helping her create an opening. They say you're the key to the ancient heart, she replied cryptically. That you can awaken what sleeps below. What does that mean? I don't know. But the elders are refusing to give you up. She created an opening large enough for me to squeeze through. We need to go. Now. While they're all distracted, I hesitated. Won't this cause trouble for your people? Zur's expression hardened with determination beyond her years. Better trouble than war. The river people don't make empty threats. They'll return with more warriors if they think you're still here. Decision made. I followed her out of the cage and along a narrow walkway that skirted the edge of the village, away from the confrontation. We reached a small canoe-like craft hidden among reeds at the shore. Get in, Zur instructed, pushing the craft into the water and jumping in after me. She paddled with practiced efficiency, guiding us into a narrow channel that led away from the village and deeper into the swampy forest. Where are we going? I asked, keeping my voice low. The old places, she replied grimly. It's not safe for you in the village anymore. And maybe there you'll find what you need to call your people. As we disappeared into the labyrinth of waterways, the sounds of confrontation faded behind us. Ahead lay unknown dangers, but also, perhaps, the key to my salvation. And beside me, paddling with fierce determination, was the small alien who had claimed me as a pet, but was now risking everything to keep me safe. The journey through the swamp was tense, but beautiful in its alien way. Bioluminescent plants reflected in the dark water, creating the illusion that we were floating through a mirror of stars. Occasionally, something large would move beneath the surface, causing ripples. Century ago, Zur's expression shifted from confusion to something deeper, more complex. Created? Like, grown in a laboratory? No. I hastened to clarify. The environment was engineered, made habitable. But your people, the Ellerans, the records don't mention you. There's nothing here about indigenous intelligent life. I scrolled through more data, trying to make sense of it. According to this, Alera was a barren moon before Project Genesis. They used experimental technology to create an atmosphere, introduce water and basic life forms. But then something went wrong. A solar storm interrupted the project. The team evacuated, leaving the core running on automatic. And what is this? Core? Zur asked, approaching the cylinder cautiously. It's the heart of the terraforming system, I explained as I understood it. It maintains the atmosphere, the water cycle, the entire ecosystem. Without it, Alera would revert to its original state. The implications were staggering. Not only had humans created this habitable environment, but they'd apparently abandoned it without realizing intelligent life had either developed or been inadvertently introduced during the process. The records say nothing about your people, Zur. Nothing about the river people either. You must have evolved here after the project was abandoned. Or perhaps you were brought here as part of the ecosystem, engineering, and developed intelligence later. Zur stood silently, absorbing this revelation about her world. Finally, she spoke. The creation story tells that we were sung into being by the stars. Maybe this is what it meant. Your people brought the song. Before I could respond, an alarm blared from the console. Warning, unauthorized access detected at perimeter. The facility's external cameras activated on a nearby screen, showing multiple river people approaching through the swamp. They moved with purpose, carrying weapons and what appeared to be technical equipment. They found us, Zur said, fear evident in her voice. Ow! They must have tracked us somehow, I replied, mind racing. We need to secure this place. But even as I spoke, the main entrance to the facility burst open. River people poured in, their bone masks gleaming in the emergency lights. At their head was the leader I'd seen at the village, now removing his mask to reveal a face similar to the Ellerans, but with sharper features and skin marked with ritual scarring. At last, he said in heavily accented but understandable English, "The key returns to the lock." "Who are you?" I demanded, positioning myself between the intruders and Zur. "What do you want?" "I am Vex, Speaker of the Deep," the leader replied. "And what I want is control of what you call the core." He gestured to the cylinder of energy. "Our ancestors told us a tall one would return to awaken the heart, that only your touch could give us command." Understanding dawned. "You believe I can give you control of the terraforming core?" "We have studied the old places for generations," Vex continued, advancing slowly. "We know the heart responds to your kind. We know it can be redirected." "Redirected how?" I asked, though I feared I knew the answer. "To favor the deep waters, to expand our territory and diminish the air breathers." He cast a dismissive glance at Zur. "To restore the proper balance." "You can't control the core," I warned. "It's a delicate system. Tampering with it could destabilize the entire ecosystem." "We are willing to take that risk," Vex replied coldly. "Now, you will give us access, or we will take it by force." Several river people moved forward, weapons ready. I glanced at the console, desperate for options. The core's interface indicated it was linked to multiple systems throughout the moon: atmospheric regulation, water purification, even gravity stabilization. Tampering with it could indeed be catastrophic. "Wait," I said, raising my hands. "Let me check something first." I turned to the console, making a show of examining the system while actually accessing security protocols. To my relief, the old systems still had some defensive capabilities. "You don't understand what you're asking," I continued, stalling. "This technology is incredibly complex. One wrong adjustment could render the entire moon uninhabitable. Our scientists have studied the old records for generations," Vex insisted. "We know enough. We need only your genetic key." Behind me, Zur tugged at my sleeve. "Ethan," she whispered urgently, "more are coming." "Look." On the security monitor, I saw more river people approaching, along with something else, figures moving through the trees. Ellerins, dozens of them, led by what looked like Elder Myra herself. "Your village has followed us," I told Zur quietly. "The elders must have tracked us," she replied. "They know the old ways better than I thought." Turning back to Vex, I made a decision. "I'll show you how the system works." I offered, "but not for the purpose you intend. This core sustains all life on Alara, including yours. It wasn't designed to favor one ecosystem over another." Vex's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "You will give us control." "I'll give you understanding," I countered. "Come see for yourself." As Vex approached cautiously, I activated the core's historical data display. The cylindrical chamber projected a holographic model of Alara, first barren, then gradually transforming as atmosphere, water, and life were introduced. "This is your world's history," I explained. "A century ago, this moon was lifeless rock. My people tried to make it habitable using experimental technology, but they abandoned the project prematurely due to a solar storm." The hologram showed the transformation process, evolving ecosystems spreading across the moon's surface. What they didn't realize was that life took hold beyond their expectations. I continued. "Your people, both Ellerins and river people, either evolved here with remarkable speed or were introduced as part of the experiment and developed intelligence later." Vex stared at the display, momentarily transfixed. "Our legends speak of emerging from the primordial waters," he murmured, "born of the deep currents." Using his distraction, I secretly accessed the facility's defensive systems. Just as I located the emergency protocols, the outer door burst open again. Elder Myra entered, flanked by Elleran warriors. "Step away from the heart, river dweller," Myra commanded. "You threaten powers beyond your understanding." Chaos erupted. River people and Ellerins clashed in the confined space of the facility. Vex lunged for the core's control panel, while I scrambled to protect the critical systems. "Sir, stay back," I shouted, but the small alien had already vaulted onto a console, using her size and agility to evade the fighting and reach a position above the fray. "Everyone stop," she cried, her voice somehow cutting through the chaos. "Listen to the tall one. He knows the truth of our world." Surprisingly, both sides hesitated. Perhaps it was the unexpected authority in her voice, or maybe the sacred nature of the facility itself gave her words weight. In a momentary lull, I stepped forward. Your peoples are fighting over something neither fully understands, I said. This core doesn't belong to either of you or to humans. It's what keeps all life on this moon possible. I activated another display, showing how the core regulated the delicate balance of Alera's artificially created ecosystem. See these connections? The core regulates everything. The air you breathe, the water cycle, even the gravitational stability that allows your floating villages to exist, Elder Myra. In Vex, the deep currents that sustain your underwater dwellings are similarly maintained. Both leaders watch the display with growing comprehension. If either of you tries to control this system for your own benefit, you risk destroying everything, I continued. My people created this technology, yes, but they abandoned it. You've been sustaining yourselves for generations since then. This world is yours now, both of yours. Elder Myra stepped forward, her ancient eyes studying the holographic display. The singing of the stars, she murmured. Our creation myth speaks truth, after all. Vex was less easily swayed. If the Tall Ones made this world, they could unmake it, or remake it to favor us. I have no such power, I insisted. And even if I did, I wouldn't use it. But I can do something else. I can secure this facility so that neither side can use it as a weapon against the other. I turned back to the console, working quickly. The system was designed with safeguards. I can activate a genetic lock that will prevent anyone, including other humans, from manipulating the core's basic functions. And we should trust you with this power? Vex challenged. Zur, who had been watching silently, suddenly spoke. I trust him, she declared. He could have used this power already if he wanted to hurt us. Instead, he wants to protect both our peoples. Elder Myra regarded Zur with new respect. The one who caught a star traveler speaks wisdom beyond her years, she said thoughtfully. Perhaps this is your gift, child. The tension in the room slowly dissipated as both sides, weary of conflict, considered the revelations about their world. Eventually, a fragile truce emerged. The river people would retreat to their territory, the Ellerans to theirs, and I would secure the core against misuse by either side. As I worked on the security protocols, Elder Myra approached me privately. Will you destroy this place when you leave? She asked directly. No, I replied without hesitation. This facility has been functioning autonomously for a century. It's better left undisturbed. I'm simply ensuring no one can tamper with its essential operations. And will more of your kind come? A fair question. I don't know, I admitted. If I can repair my communications equipment, a rescue ship will eventually arrive. I'll make sure they understand this moon is inhabited and protected under interstellar law. Myra nodded slowly. See that you do, Star Traveler. We have survived without intervention this long. We wish to continue our own path. With the immediate crisis averted, I worked with components salvaged from the facility to repair my pod's communications array. Zur insisted on helping, her nimble fingers proving surprisingly adept with the delicate circuitry. You're good at this, I remarked as she correctly identified a power coupling without being told. I understand things, she replied simply. How they fit together. I always have. 3 days later, we had a functioning transmitter. The distress signal was broadcasting, though it would take time for any rescue vessels to detect and respond to it. In the meantime, a cautious peace had settled between the village and the river people, with both sides retreating to study what they'd learned about their world's origins. Zur insisted I return to the village rather than remain at my pod. The forest has dangers, she explained. Besides, your cage is very comfortable. I laughed. I'm not going back in that cage. No. She agreed with what I now recognized as a mischievous smile. You've been upgraded to honored guest. Much better than pet. Life in the village took on a strange normalcy over the following weeks. I learned more of their language and customs, while sharing knowledge of Earth and human culture. The young Ellerans were particularly fascinated by stories of oceans, mountains, and cities that touched the clouds. Zur, meanwhile, had found her place in the community. Her role in resolving the conflict with the river people, combined with her growing knowledge of technology, gleaned from our work on the transmitter, had earned her respect among the elders. She was now apprenticed to their knowledge keeper, tasked with preserving the newly discovered history of their world. Yet despite this integration, I remained vigilant for the rescue signal. Each night, I checked the transmitter, hoping for a response. And finally, one evening, it came, a coded message indicating a ship had detected my beacon and was en route. Relief flooded through me, quickly followed by an unexpected sense of loss. I'd grown attached to this strange moon and its inhabitants. To Zur, I found her at the edge of the village, where a small platform extended over the glowing water. She sat with her feet dangling above the surface, creating ripples with occasional kicks. "Your people are coming," she said before I could speak. Not a question. She'd come to know me well enough to read it in my face. "Yes," I confirmed, sitting beside her. "They picked up my signal. A ship will arrive within days." She nodded, still staring at the water. "You'll go home." "I have duties," I said softly. "Responsibilities." "To your tribe," she acknowledged. "I understand." We sat in silence for a while, watching the bioluminescent creatures swim beneath the surface, creating trails of light that mirrored the stars visible through breaks in the canopy above. "Will others come after you?" Zur finally asked. "More tall ones?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Once I report the existence of intelligent life here, Ilera will be classified as a protected world. In theory, that means limited contact, no interference." "In theory," she repeated, catching my uncertainty. "I'll make sure they understand how important that is," I promised. "Your world is unique, an accidentally created biosphere that developed its own complex ecosystem and intelligent species. The scientific community will want to study it, but I'll fight to ensure they do so respectfully at a distance." Zur turned to face me, her amber eyes reflecting the glow from the water below. "And you? Will you return?" The question caught me off guard, though perhaps it shouldn't have. "I don't know if that would be permitted," I replied. "Contact protocols are strict." "But you're already here," she pointed out with impeccable logic. "You already know us. Who better to be the bridge between our worlds?" I couldn't help but smile at her reasoning. "You make a compelling argument. I learned from watching you negotiate with the river people," she said with a hint of pride. "Find a common ground, then build upon it." The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. I gathered my research samples and data, while the village prepared gifts for me to take back. Woven fabrics, carved ornaments, even a small vial of the bioluminescent compound that gave their world its ethereal glow. When my scanner detected the approaching ship entering orbit, I felt both excitement and trepidation. I'd radioed ahead, explaining the basics of the situation, that the moon was inhabited and that first contact had already been established, but protocol for such a scenario was untested. The ship landed in a clearing near my original crash site. Commander Shepard, a stern woman with more gray than black in her cropped hair, led the extraction team. Her expression remained carefully neutral as I explained the full situation. The Ellerans, the river people, the terraforming core, all of it. "This complicates matters, Lieutenant Cole," she said when I'd finished. "Finding you alive was our primary objective. Finding you involved with a previously unknown intelligent species. That's beyond my authority to handle. They saved my life," I emphasized, "and they've managed to maintain a complex civilization despite being the unintended result of an abandoned experiment. They deserve our respect." "That will be for the Xenological Council to decide," Shepard replied. "We have orders to extract you and return to Earth immediately." I'd expected this response, but it still felt abrupt. "I need to say goodbye properly," I insisted. "They deserve that much." Shepard hesitated, then nodded curtly. 2 hours, Lieutenant. Then we launch, with or without you." I returned to the village one last time. The Ellerans had gathered in the central meeting place, an impromptu farewell ceremony already underway. Elder Myra presented me with a final gift, a small crystal that glowed with the same energy as the core. "A reminder of the heart that beats within Ilera," she said solemnly, "and of those who now guard it." I thanked her, struggling with unexpected emotion. The villagers had prepared a feast of their strange but now familiar foods, insisting I partake in this final communion with them. Throughout it all, I searched for Zur, but she was nowhere to be seen. As the ceremony concluded and the moment of departure approached, I pulled Elder Myra aside. "Where is Zur?" I asked. I wanted to say goodbye. Myra's expression softened. "She has chosen her own path, as is her right. Look for her where you first met." Understanding dawned. I hurried back toward the landing site, taking the now familiar path through the luminescent forest. Sure enough, as I approached the ship, I spotted a small figure standing just at the edge of the clearing, watching the humans prepare for departure. "You weren't going to say goodbye?" I asked, approaching her. Zur turned, her expression unreadable. "Goodbyes are for those who won't meet again. And you think we will?" "I know it," she said with certainty. "The stars brought you here once. They will again." I knelt to bring myself closer to her eye level. "I'll try," I promised. "I can't guarantee anything, but I'll try to come back." "I know," she repeated, and then surprised me by extending her small hand. "Until then, I release you from being my pet." I laughed, taking her hand in mine. "I appreciate that. But," she added with that familiar, mischievous gleam, "when you return, we can renegotiate the arrangement." Commander Shepard's voice called from the ship. "Lieutenant Cole, final boarding call." I stood, still holding Zur's hand. "I have to go." She nodded, releasing me. "Go safely, Ethan Cole. Remember us." "How could I forget?" I replied softly. "You changed my understanding of everything. Life, intelligence, adaptation. I'll make sure others know what I've learned here." As I walked toward the ship, Zur called after me one last time. "Ethan, I was wrong before." I turned back. "About what?" She smiled, a genuine expression of joy that transcended our biological differences. "You were never really my pet. We were always partners in discovery." Those words stayed with me as the ship broke atmosphere, Elara receding to a glowing orb below us. I watched through the viewport until it was no longer visible, already composing in my mind the report I would deliver to the Xenological Council. I would fight for this world's protection, for the right of the Ellerins and river people to develop without interference, for recognition that humanity's careless experimentation had inadvertently created something miraculous that we had no right to claim or control. And somewhere in that report, I would request a permanent liaison position, a bridge between worlds, a chance to return to the place where I'd been captured as a pet and found instead a new understanding of what it means to be a sentient being in a vast and surprising universe. In my quarters aboard the rescue vessel, I carefully placed Elder Myra's crystal beside my bunk. In the darkness of space, it pulsed with a gentle light, reminding me of a small, brave alien with amber eyes who had once claimed me as her own and then, in the greatest act of compassion, let me go. But not forever. Never forever. After all, I had a promise to keep.